So my name is Amy Fosek, and I'm one of the coaches with Technology and Innovation, and I will be presenting with Lauren Swissman, who is another coach in our EdTech department.
Good morning.
So our agenda today is we're going to start with going over the purpose and different types of portfolios that you can have with your students. We'll go over the initial steps of login and setup for your class with the Seesaw platform. We'll go through the nuts and bolts and give you a Seesaw overview. So really focusing on assignments and posting student work. And then again, we'll have time for that question and answer, as well as time for you to explore the site itself. So as we look at the purposes and types of portfolios, so the purpose of a portfolio can take many different lenses, right? Basically, it is a compilation of academic work and other forms of educational evidence that you assemble for several purposes. You can assemble it for evaluating a student's coursework, their learning progress, their academic achievement. You can determine whether students have met learning standards and other grade level requirements. You can use it to help students reflect on their academic goals and their progress as a learner. And you can create a lasting archive of academic work, accomplishments, and other documentation. So essentially, student portfolios can provide learners and teachers with a richer, deeper, and more picture of what students have learned and where they are as learners. There are four main types of portfolios. So when you're looking at using the Seesaw platform, you can determine which one of these types of portfolios do I want to use with my students, or am I going to have a hybrid one? So the first one is a process portfolio. And this is a portfolio that contains student-created products where they have really reflected on the learning process, right? They're really responding to thought-provoking questions. So it's really getting students to think about their learning. The next piece is a showcase portfolio. And this is where a student highlights their best work and they publish the work that they are most proud of and that is most meaningful for them. Next is an assessment portfolio. An assessment portfolio is used to document what a student has learned and or gives them a way to demonstrate what they have mastered in terms of elements of the curriculum or grade level expectations. And artifacts within the portfolio are chosen basically based on the curriculum. The one that most seems to be most commonly used is a hybrid portfolio. And a hybrid portfolio is a combination of all of these different types of portfolio, right? It allows kids and students to reflect on their learning, and they can choose pieces that they value and demonstrate mastery of the elements. So in a hybrid portfolio, both the teacher and student are involved in choosing what pieces are added into their portfolio. So it could be demonstrations of learning, it can be assessments, it could be showcase pieces that they've done outside of school and they want to share with you. So keeping this in mind, we're going to go now into the Seesaw platform. And we're going to show you ways in which you can utilize this platform for any of those four types of portfolios. So we'll start with the login and setup. For those of you who don't already have an account, you're going to log in to seesaw.me. There is a link in the slide deck if you would like to click on that as well. Once you've logged in, you're going to click on I am a teacher and create a new account if you do not already have one. Okay. Once you have done that, it will take you to a screen that looks similar to this one. So it will say using Seesaw for home learning. It will give you your name and allow you to add other features. So we're going to go ahead and I will share with you now how you would set up your Seesaw account. So here is my Seesaw account. When I go in, the first thing I want to do is I want to click on the wrench. Now, the wonderful thing about Seesaw is it is very intuitive. So most things are where you would think they would be. So the wrench is your access to all of your settings. So if you click on the wrench, your class settings will pop up. At the very top, there is a Add Students and Add Family button. So if at any point during your school year, if you have new students join you or new families, you can just click the plus student or plus family, and that will add them. And it will give you the different codes that you need to share with them in order for them to have access to your portfolio. So you'll first start with filling in your class name, your grade level. Now the grade level is one where you want to, where the differences will show up, and that comes in how your students sign in mode. The default for early primary when you put in your grade level is to have students sign in with a QR code. And we're gonna go through that a little in just a few moments, but that is really the only difference. It also, when you pick your grade level, the early primary will give the students pictures that kind of look like animals. And upper grades allows more flexibility in allowing students to put in their own pictures and avatars. The next is the managed teachers. So if I was team teaching with another teacher, I could add them to my Seesaw account as a teacher, and they would have all of the access that I have. Now with the free version of Seesaw, you can have a max number of 2 teachers shared on your account. You'll pick your class theme, your class icon. Then we get down to the student sign-in mode. So these are all in this box, all settings that affect your students. So the student sign-in mode, when I click on this, it will give me 3 different options. So it will give me a class code. So this would be if my students were sharing devices, I would use the class code shared devices, and I would click on here. I have a class code, which is a one-to-one. So this is where students can sign in using the class code. They will choose their name from the list, and then they can add to their portfolio. So this again is recommended for the one-on-one environments, right? The third option is the one that I would highly recommend regardless of your grade level, which is the email Google sign-in. Now, because students will be using a Chromebook device, they will already be logged in with their Google account, so they can just click sign in with Google. So you don't have to worry about those primary students always needing to know their Google ID, their student login number, all of that all at once to get into Seesaw. Once they click in, they can just click sign in with Google, and it will open their Seesaw account. But there is one more steps that they will need to take in order to link to your account that we will go over in one moment. The next piece is the manage students. If I click here, here's where I could add students to my class. So if here's my sample student, if I wanted to put in their pictures, I could do that. If they had a nickname, I could change it and put it in for their first name. It would also allow me to see which family members are linked to this student's account. I scroll down. There are home learning student codes, and this is an option in Seesaw. So what happens when you do this option though, is it takes away the student's ability to collaborate within a portfolio. So it closes that off. So that is why we're recommending, even though you are using this in a virtual environment, if you know you are going to be using it for collaboration, go ahead and proceed with the setup we're going through rather than sending your students home learning codes. You have a feature in here where you can turn on and off students like and comments. Do you want them to be able to like other students' photos and work, or do you not want them? That's really a personal preference. And it gives you a great avenue for teaching digital citizenship. So you also have features such as students can see each other's work. You can choose to have that on or off. New items require teacher approval. Now, again, this is a personal professional preference. So this feature allows that before a student can post anything into their portfolio, you will need to approve it first. Now, the nice thing about having this on is that when you look at the approval, you can look at the work. If you see that a student is missing something, you can, there's a button where you can click send back. So it will go right back to them and alert them that they need to look at something that you sent back to them.
Amy, can I just stop you right there for a second?
Yeah.
Can you clarify this, why you would not send home student learning codes, or when you might use those or not use those, kind of the difference between the home learning codes?
Okay. Sure. So the main difference here you can see is that when you send home learning codes, that students will not see each other's work at all. So they will not be able to see other students' work that is posted into Seesaw. So maybe you had them do a book review and you wanted others to listen to their book review and comment. They would not have that option if you were using home learning codes.
And just to clarify, there's a couple of questions about sharing of student photos and information. If you do have students that have requested that they haven't done their photo release and they've requested that they not be shown on there, you just need to make sure that anything that student is doing that has private information or their picture or their full name is not posted publicly so that other students can see it. That one would just need to be private, or you need to work out something with that specific student. Otherwise, you can do everything as long as you're not sharing student private information in this platform. It is okay to go ahead and share their work.
Yes, and when we talk about the parent piece, parents cannot see other students' work. That does remain private. So when you add parents, they can only see their child's specific work. Okay. Any other questions, Lauren?
Yes. I'm not sure, I'm sorry if I may have missed it. For adding students, how to add them, the different ways to add them from a Google Classroom or with their Google email address.
Sorry, could you say that one more time?
Sure. So just to clarify, it's not so much that you're adding them from the Google Classroom, but students can sign in with their Google email address, even though it's not technically email address. Can you just show us where you hit the plus students, or how you add students, and then
Yep.
you can
so if I was adding a student, I would come up to the plus sign and I would say, it gives me the prompt, do I want students to sign into Seesaw using their Google account or email address? And I would say yes. And you can see on my screen, this is similar to the screen that students see when they log in, what's inside this circle. So it will say sign in with Google. So if they click that, they'll just need to confirm that the name that pops up is them, and then it will link their account to Seesaw. And so I would click yes here. And this takes you through the instructions of what you would need to do when your students sign up. So I'll just go ahead and go through this now, since we're talking about getting students logged in. So they would log in either in the Seesaw class app, or they could go to app.seesaw.me on any computer in Chrome or on the Firefox browser. So those are the two browsers you want them using. They'll click I am a student. They will need to type in your class code, and they only need to type this code in one time. Once they type in this code, they will be linked to your class. They do not need to do it every time. So you'll copy this class code. You would have them type it in. It is not case sensitive. They would click sign in with Google, and they would be directly linked to your class. So this is something also where if I was holding, a coffee with the teacher at, the first week of school, I would probably go over with parents just for the little ones so they could get their students set up. And if I was maybe in an upper primary class, then I would just walk through and have the students do this with me. Any questions on that piece, Lauren?
I'm not on that piece, but I just want to address something to everyone, because we're getting lots of questions about the paid versus the free version. As of right now, at this moment in time, the district is not paying for Seesaw. However, there are negotiations happening, and things, as you know, are changing very rapidly, especially for our youngest learners. trying to find the tools that are best fit for them. So as soon as something happens and that is solidified, you will be notified either through your principal or through a direct email. However, that is not something in a culture role that we have information on at this time. Next, with Seesaw and their paid versus free version, they are constantly also changing what they're allowing in their free and what they're allowing in paid. It has changed even in the last couple of weeks. So while we say this is free now or this is part of the paid version now, that could change. So please just keep that in mind as you're working through different things, that Seesaw is also always changing what they have for free versus paid. Yet many of the free versions are still fully accessible in that they let you continue to run your classroom as is.
Absolutely. And that's why we talk a lot about, and we love Seesaw, is because we call it that freemium tool, where it has so many amazing features in just the free version that it's not necessary to have all of the extra access that is offered within the paid version. So everything we're going over is in the free version. Okay, so we'll get back now to your student setting. So again, item editing. This is something I would highly encourage you to make sure is turned on. This allows students, if they submit something on accident and they say, oh no, I forgot to do X, Y, and Z, they can go in, they can click edit, and they can fix their piece. Where if you do not have this turned on, then that falls on you, and you will have to go in, you'll have to edit the item and send it back to them. Okay. A different one is if students are working collaboratively, this says allow students to edit who is tagged in a post. So if I did something with Lauren and I clicked and I tagged her in the post, this would mean that she can then edit that item. So again, depending on what you're working on, this will come as just your professional choice and whether you want that turned on or turned off, depending on the collaborative project. Okay. We go down. The next would be enable a sample student. So this would be if you wanted to have a sample student, anything you assign would get assigned to that sample student, and you could go over it with your students, show them how to use the different features, what the directions are, and you would be in as that sample student to model for your students. The next piece goes into family. So this is enabling family access. So you could have an open or closed portfolio in terms of family access. So I think when, if you had a full assessment portfolio and you wanted to keep that for just you to look at to help drive your instruction, you could have one portfolio that students had that was created that was a full assessment portfolio that maybe was not shared with parents and was only for you. And then they had another portfolio that was a hybrid portfolio where it had proof of learning, activities, collaborative projects all within, and that one could enable family access. Again, when you enable family access, that family only sees their child's work. So to invite families, you could click here or the plus sign we showed you at the top at the very beginning, and this allows you to invite them to your Seesaw portfolio, their child's portfolio. And here would be the manage families. So if I had wanted to look at the different families that were connected, I could see it within here. It also allows parents, so say they have a child and they also want the grandparents or aunt and uncles to be part of that portfolio, you could add them and share that code with them. So the pending family approvals would be if a parent sent you something because you wanted to monitor their comments, it would show up, you're turning that on or off. And same with the family likes and sharing. So these give you access to, can a family share it? So again, like I had just mentioned before, if they're really proud of something their child does, can they share that with grandma and grandpa, close friends of the family? That would be where you turn that on or off. Are you allowing families to like their child's posts? Are you allowing family comments? And are you requiring that the comments require approval? Again, all of these are just personal preference to what you prefer your portfolios to look like. Any questions on that, Lauren?
Yes. Amy, can you just explain the difference between the home learning codes and inviting family members like you would if you were in the regular classroom. Or I can go into it if.
Yes.
Okay. So the home learning codes are for remote learning. If you want to set your students up that way, if you want to give them their account, that was something that Seesaw created in response to COVID-19 so that students could only see their work at home and no one else could see that. Inviting families is different. That would be, and in this case, if there's a family member not in the household, let's say you don't live with grandma, and she wants to see the work you're doing, you can invite her to see your child. The teacher can invite that parent or aunt or uncle or grandma to see that child's work and just that child's work. So those are two different things. Home learning codes would be accessed for the student. Inviting family members would be inviting them to see that their child's work.
Thanks, Lauren. The next piece is the class blog. So this is an additional feature within Seesaw. So it is, you set it up, and because it is a blog, it does become public. So students would, if you turn this on, you're creating a blog that becomes public information. So there's two different ways when you create the blog. You can make that live to everyone, or you can set it where in order to be part of the blog that you need to have a certain passcode. So when you set this up, if I wanted my blog on and I wanted my students to be able to present to an authentic audience, so I want to connect with other second grade classes from across the district, and we're all going to have this shared blog, I could make that password protected so that only those students are able to connect and blog on that post. The next piece we get into is folders. Now, folders are a great thing to utilize in terms of organizing your assignments. So this would allow me to create a folder. I can hit create folder. I want it to be red, and I'm gonna title this one Fluency. So everything that I put out in terms of assignments in Fluency, I'm gonna tag the red folder, so everything is grouped for me. This next piece in the folder says show add to folder step. So this would be that so that the students can and you see the different folders that exist. So when I create an assignment, the folder will show up and it will prompt me to decide which assignment that goes into. Or if I was posting a picture of student work, it would prompt me as well. If I add the student piece, then that allows the student to be able to put work samples into that folder. So if they knew that there was a folder that was tagged Fluency and they just had done a Fluency read and they recorded themselves, they could upload it and put it in that folder for me to see. I wouldn't need to do that. They could do that organization step on their own. There is a skills piece. This piece again comes with the paid version. So we're going to move on from that one. So now that we've gone through all of the different settings, Lauren, are there any questions before I go on to the add button and activities?
Nope, we are good for now.
Awesome. All right, so right next to their journal, you have activities. Now, the nice thing about Seesaw is there is an activity library. So I can click browse the activity library, and it takes me to activities that were created in the Seesaw community, and then in my library. So my library is activities that I have tagged and are specific to ones I'm using within my classroom. Now here's where the paid version versus the free version comes into play, is that in the free version, you are allowed to save 100 activities, which seems like a lot, but it starts to add up quickly. So my recommendation is when you are making your library in terms of what you're saving, to save the ones that are in your community library, ones that you send out that you've created yourself, whether it's uploading a doc or a video, just be mindful of, do I need to save this, or next year if I use the same activity, can I just drop it in from my drive? So that's kind of how I manage what goes into my library to stay under that 100 count. So when I'm in the library, it gives me access to all different grade levels. So I can filter by grade level, I can filter by subject, or if I was looking for something specific. So say I wanted, let's just say back to school activities, I could click it and it will filter for me. And then I can again filter it down more, and I could say, okay, I want back to school activities for 3rd grade. When I go in and click on the activity, oops, sorry, clicked on the individual. Here is where it will tell me about the activity. It will show me the directions that are on there. And then I can get into, okay, what is it tagged as? What areas is it meeting? Is it ELA? Is it math, social emotional learning? How many teachers have liked this? What is it compatible with? If I liked it, then I could go ahead and click either the heart and it will go into my activity library as something I've liked, or I can click assign. When you click the assign button, it will show you all of your classes. And this is a great way to also differentiate. So I can click assign. I know I want it, let's say, in my play class here. I can click edit students, and I could only send it to the specific students I wanted. So I could send it to every single student in my reading group that really needs reinforcement with short E, or I could send it to all students. So in here is where you would do that piece. Now, there are other ways to add activities to your class other than going into the activity tab. I can click add at the top, and I could click assign activity, and it will take me to that same spot as well. Okay. When I click this add button here, it also gives me 3 other options. I can click post student work. So here's where if a student has sent me something outside of Seesaw and I really wanted to put it in their portfolio, I can click post student work. I can choose within here, do I want to upload it? Did they put it in my drive and I'm going to upload it? Am I going to just take a note? Maybe it's anecdotal notes. Am I putting a link? So maybe they made a book on Right Reader and I want to put that book into Seesaw. I'm going to add the link. Is it a video, a drawing, or a photo? So it gives you all of these options when you post student work. Now, these are the same options that students have available to them when they are adding work. So if a student presses the add button and wanted to add something, they would have these same options as well. Questions on that, Lauren?
Nope, we're doing good.
Great. So the next piece it gives me here is the send the announcements. This would be if I wanted an announcement to make to my parents or to students. It gives me, do I want to send it to all students? Maybe it's just a reminder to family members. So I'm only sending it to the family members that are connected, or I want it to both student and family members. I can do that within this announcement. I can also add attachments. So again, if I want to connect something, maybe my weekly newsletter I wanted to send out through Seesaw. So I'm going to put it in my announcements. I'm going to upload it from my drive and send it to families. So that is the announcement feature. The inbox feature, again, will give you messages and notifications within here. Okay. At the bottom of our screen, you can see there is also the Add Student and Add Family button. So with this, as well as how you assign activities, there are several different ways that you can do it. Again, a lot of it is intuitive. Where you think something would be, a lot of the times it is. So again, here, if I get a new student, I'm going to click my Add Student and go through this process of, do I want them to sign in with Google? Now, if you did not want them to sign in with Google and you wanted to use the QR code option for sign in, my suggestion would be that, again, you screenshot that and then send it to parents or send the email to parents so they have it on hand. But then they would need to print it out, and a student would then have to initiate the camera and use the QR code every time. Whereas if Seesaw becomes a bookmark on the student's device, then they can just click the sign in with Google, which they had to sign in to get into their Chromebook anyway, so that's already done for them. On the left-hand side, it gives you options where it will give you all of your classes, and it will give you an option to create a new class. So this is for me where I had my different portfolios. I had my assessment portfolio. I only had students put formative and summative assessments in there, so that when I sat down at report card time, we could go through that portfolio looking at those students' pieces rather than having to navigate through the student's whole portfolio. Okay. Then this is where I had my other portfolio that was more of a live portfolio, where students were completing work, putting things in there they wanted me to see, and there were some assessments in there as well. Within the free version, excuse me, you can have up to 10 different classes. The other piece that I realized I forgot to add, just a little bit of information. When you are in the activity library, you can click on somebody's activity that's already been created. Oops, excuse me. And you can modify those. So if I click here, how to use the Seesaw activity, again, it goes through all of this for you. So if you were a little unsure, it will be a reminder here. If I click on these three dots, again, I can print the activity if I wanted it in paper pencil form. I can also share the activity. So if I said, Lauren, I found this activity in Seesaw, I'd love for our whole grade level to do it, I can click on that 3 button. I can go into select teachers. If she's not on my list, I just scroll to the bottom and I can enter her email address and then send her the activity so she has access to that. I could also use the teacher link and send that to teachers as well if I wanted to share that, as well as post on social media.
Amy, we do have a question about scheduling assignments for specific dates and time.
Mm-hmm.
Is this available on the free version or only upgraded? I'm not sure about that.
Scheduling assignments to be sent at specific times is only available on the paid version. So what I would do is I would have those assignments in my library already. If I knew they were going to be doing them on Tuesday, after work on Monday, or in the morning on Tuesday morning before school started, I would hit assign and assign those activities. Any other questions, Lauren?
Yes, a question about how to embed an activity into your weekly plan that you've posted in Canvas. You can simply, when you go to that assignment or that activity within Seesaw, copy that link and link it to Words, or just drop that link right into the Canvas assignment if you want them just to click on it.
And later we will also be doing a training on Canvas for littles, so giving you, and for primary students, so giving you kind of tips and tricks and how to navigate the Canvas world with primary students. Any other questions, Lauren, before we move on?
I believe we have them all handled in the chat.
Okay. So Lauren and I will remain on for the rest of our hour together. So if you want to right now, go ahead, and if you haven't used Seesaw, go ahead and start exploring Seesaw. Or if you have questions that come up, feel free to put them in the chat and we will do our best to get you those answers promptly.
And again, I just want to reiterate, we are currently looking at the free version, but with also, she's on the trial for the paid one. So some of them look a little bit different than yours. And also it appears that Seesaw has given different free accounts to different teachers. So you might be grandfathered into some tools because you made your free account earlier. So I made my free account many years ago, and I realized that there are some tools and features that are still free for me, but not free for people who are just making an account now. So again, we can't give a blanket statement saying that this is free for everyone. It might look a little bit different on your account. So we definitely suggest you going into your account and seeing what features that you have for free, and working with what you are given there.
Yes, but the tools we did highlight are universal for free accounts. So if I skipped over something that you saw pop up, it was because I've had my Seesaw account for so long that those were old access points that were available during their free account period.
So we have a question about the portfolio being different than the color-coded folders. Amy, do you mind answering that one while I answer some more questions in the chat?
So the folders, think of them as more of a way of organizing your content that you're sending out, and for a way for students to organize the content. So think of it as maybe like your file folder that you would have in your classroom, where you would say, okay, here's everything we've done on reading comprehension. Here's everything on math, right? Those are what the folders would be. I know that there are some teachers who do have different portfolios for different subjects, but that becomes a lot of managing and navigating for students. But if that's something that you would like to do, you are certainly obviously welcome. It's whatever fits you best as a professional. But I would recommend, rather than having a whole bunch of different portfolios, that you utilize the folder option. And then decide specifically, if you are having multiple portfolios, what do you want those portfolios to be, right? Like as we talked about earlier, do I want to have an assessment portfolio and then one portfolio that's a more working portfolio? Or maybe I even have one that's a reading group portfolio. Really depends on your needs. But a lot of that organization in terms of assignments, you can organize using the folders within the portfolio. Lauren, are there any other questions?
Can you just show us one more time how to find each student's portfolio by going to the journal and then clicking on their name?
Mm-hmm. So if I wanted to find students' portfolios, they would come up here. You can see in this one, it's a demo course, so I don't have any students. If I clicked on journal, all of your students would appear here, and you could click on that student and their portfolio would come up.
And just because the questions are coming in quickly, and I'm going to go ahead and share these out. It's faster than typing. So if I keep getting several questions on how to delete or archive a class, I've posted the link a couple of times of how to delete or archive a class. But maybe
I can go over that really. When you're in here, if I go into my settings tool, this little coggle, I can click on it and it will tell me my account settings, my share in Seesaw, contact support. If I click on my account settings, I can scroll down to the bottom and it will give me this option. And it will say, do I want to delete this account? So this means that the students will not have access to anything that they've put into that account, or do I just want to archive it? So if I had my class last year and they were starting the new school year, I would archive that class so that when the student goes into Seesaw, they don't see all of their former classes in there. And here is where you would also change your notifications to how you want to get notified when your students put something into their portfolio. So do you want email notifications every time they post something? Do you want push notifications? And can Seesaw contact you with tips, tricks, and Seesaw updates? Seesaw is very good about providing updates and professional learning around their updates that they make. So if there's something you wanted to do in Seesaw, most likely they have a professional development video on that topic. Okay. So while we, Lauren and I will still stay on and continue to answer questions, but I just wanted to go over a few things since we're now nearing the end. If additional questions come up, so you're working in Seesaw, something happens, or you have questions, please feel free to reach out and email us at edtech@powausd.com. Also in the spring, we created a PUSD digital teaching resource site, and there are additional Seesaw trainings posted on this site. So some of ones we've done and other ones that Seesaw has put out that we just organized into one place for you to go to access those resources.
So to go over, we have a couple questions about multi-grade classes, multi-level classes, SPED, special day classes. There are a couple of different options to best set up your classroom. And even if you do not have a multi-grade classroom, these are some options you might explore. Something you can do is to create multiple classrooms. For instance, you might create a class for all your different periods of reading. If you teach reading to multiple classes, if you're departmentalized, you might create a class, multiple classes, maybe one for social emotional learning and one for more academic. You may make a class for your fourth graders and one for your fifth graders. So separating classes is one way to go about it. When you have an assignment that you've created an activity and you want to assign it to just one class, you can do that, or you can assign it to all of your classes. You just quickly check the classes that you want to assign it to. And if you don't want to have multiple classes, maybe you're not doing things differently that much for your students, you can have all of your students in one class, and when you assign an activity, you can just click the student that you want to assign it to. However, you cannot make groups. So you can't have, like in Canvas, a fourth grade group and a fifth grade group within your class. You'd have to individually pick the students you want to send it to.
Yes. So this is the feature Lauren was just sharing. So I clicked assign and you can see all of my classes come up when I click assign. So I can decide, do I want it this whole class? And then I want to edit students from this class and only assign it to certain ones. You have that ability when you assign an activity. So I see a question here about the Seesaw app being on MyPlan/ClassLink. So there's going to be a training on ClassLink as soon as the official contract day starts. There'll be a training for all teachers in PUSD on customizing your ClassLink page when students log in. And that will be an option for you to put Seesaw on that ClassLink. So right when students log in, they could see Seesaw, they could see Canvas, and maybe other apps and sites that you're using, you'd be able to customize specific to your class. Again, if we were unable to get to your question because it got lost in the chat, I know Lauren has been has been trying to get to every single one of them. If for some reason one got missed, please feel free to put it in the chat again, and either Lauren or I will do our best to answer that with the remaining time that we have.
There's a question about linking an individual activity from Canvas to Seesaw. I'm not sure I fully understand that. Are you saying that you want them to do something in Seesaw and then Canvas? You can link an activity in either place. I'm not sure I'm fully understanding that question, if you want to clarify that a little bit.
You can, when you're creating an assignment in Canvas, you could put, you know, please, here's your assignment, please complete this activity in Seesaw, and then link to Seesaw. So then the student would just click on that link when they're in Canvas, and it would take them to their portfolio where it would show them that they have an activity that needs to be completed. I do not have any student portfolios to share with you because they do have student names, first and last names on them. We can certainly work on looking to see if we can find one that is has those names blacked out so that you can see what it looks like from the student end.
Yeah, I'm looking to see if I have any. They do not have student last names, but I believe they all do.
So there's a question regarding Google Classroom. So we'll be again doing a training on using the Google LTI in Canvas. That's coming up, as well as when we do the Canvas for primary. That we'll be going into greater detail because the question was, should I use Google Classroom? Well, now that Canvas has the Google LTI, a lot of those features that we loved about Google Classroom, you can now do within Canvas. So I can go into Canvas, I can assign an activity, and I can use the Google LTI, and that will make it so it takes that slide deck, makes a copy for each student, puts their name on it, and organizes it for me into Drive. So again, a lot of those features we loved are now in Canvas. And Canvas is the district supported LMS. So we are really trying to encourage all teachers to do as much as they can within that.
So I mentioned QR codes earlier in the chat. You could use a QR code if you knew several of your students had an iPad and you wanted them, they were printing it out and keeping it in their house. That's an instance in which you might use that, and they could continually scan that, but it wouldn't be the most feasible option for your students, especially because most of them are probably going to be on a Chromebook and it's on there. The home learning codes, that's something you can definitely use if that's an option that you feel more comfortable with. It does make sure that all of students' work is completely private and that they can't see any other students' work. However, that would limit the collaboration piece of this, and that students couldn't comment on each other's work. So it's up to you with this. However, you just need to make sure that if you're not using the home learning codes, that you're making sure you're respecting student privacy, you're not using any personal information when doing assignments.
Yes, and when you share, when you invite parents, as a reminder, they do not have access to view any other student work. They only see their students' work. So.
Cindy, they could log in as their child if their child, they could do that. However, we don't recommend that because the permission under FERPA laws for what a student can see of other students versus a parent can see of other students in that class varies. So that's why we recommend giving the parents that family code to log in so they can only see their child's work. If they log in under their child, they would be able to see other students' work possibly, and that would be a violation of FERPA. So that's why we recommend the family codes.
So thank you again for joining us. I went ahead and put up the slide that has our email. So if any questions come up, please feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you, everyone.